for me.
A couple more stragglers and we'll get going here. Got this whole table. I'll set that there. Let it go. Route the people. Go ahead, I'm sorry. Welcome back. Welcome back. Actually, on this side.
Yeah, it's really nice. I can see they had one there since we rebuilt it. It's got 4 gates.
Do you have Christy's number?
Who is it?
Christy? I don't know where they went to, but
Did they
her group's gone. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't even seen it. Good call.
So,
Let me look. I can find it.
I wonder if they're out around the corner or. Do you know where Christy's group went?
No. Very far, probably.
Yeah, they gone.
Can you text Christy?
No.
No, they don't have her number. Can you tell her? I gotta come back.
Her phone is here.
Oh, yeah, it won't work.
She would have got you. It is.
I spent some time in Louisiana.
Yeah, that's her phone here. She's with Dan Lano. And then Shane Nielsen.
Chain, I think I have.
We've lost a group. We don't know where they went. This group here. Yeah. We need.
Yeah, as long as everybody does the same, like if one airline changes their flight time, the other one keeps it.
Yeah. You got them? All right. Let's get back after it. So real quick, before we get some feedback on how that went and how our comfort level is, this came from a discussion with Karen's group. And just to differentiate what we're doing here, you look at levels of communication. You have your high quality connections, which are those frequent, pleasant interactions. You walk in, good morning, you smile, you see them at the coffee pot, you're getting water out of the cooler, whatever that is, all right? Just frequent, pleasant, positive interactions. Then you got your weekly, bi-weekly, monthly check-ins. Whatever it is that you do, this is a two-way communication. You're seeing how things going. Are we on track? How's this project? How's that? Is there anything you need from me? Listening sessions are something we're going to do once a year, once every 18 months. All right? The difference between the weekly check-ins and the listening sessions, the weekly check-ins are more about like what's current, what do you have going on, two-way communication. If you hear something that isn't quite accurate, or maybe they need, like you're going to share that, it's going to be more two-way. Listening sessions are deeper. All right, they're at a deeper level of a conversation with people. And so when we think about the purpose, if we have, and some people have talked about it, I've got a struggling team right now. It's great for that. It's also great, we've got a great team. We feel like things are going well, we're going to sharpen the tip of the spear. How can we strengthen the things that we're already good at? So does that make sense when we think about the application of these three really important communication tools as leaders? So how are we feeling? Was everybody able to practice at least a few minutes how this thing kicks off? Anybody who's feeling really good about it want to get up in front of the group and do that? Bueller? So I overheard, and you can say no, but I overheard John talking with his group and his rollout. I just really liked the way he was communicating that. It was very sharp. John, would you be willing to share? If you'd rather not, then you can just say, I'd rather not. I'd rather not. Okay, thank you. That is psychological safety. Karen, let's not destroy the psychological safety. No. Awesome. It was, because as I listened to it, and we do have, and it's in the little potential meeting scenario, right? Like if you're uncomfortable, a great way to break the ice is you know that we're meeting every 4 to 6 weeks in this leadership group. And the primary focus, everything that we're working on in this group is people and culture. How do we create a better place to work? How do we create better teams? How do we make morale a top priority? Right? And we're thinking about this, we're thinking about engagement, not necessarily morale, but morale is a simple word that will resonate. And as part of that, we've been given an assignment. And, I kind of feel bad that it took an assignment to do this as I reflect on it, but this is a great opportunity, and that assignment is to do listening sessions with everyone in this meeting, right? Like some of you are like, okay, I've got 3 direct reports and they each have 10 direct reports. We're not asking you to do 30 listening sessions. It's impractical, right? So you'll have to make the decision like, okay, I got 3, I'm going to do 3, and then I might do some spot checks, or I might do the 3, train them on how to do this when this is done, and then have them do it. It depends on where you feel your group is at. So what questions do you have coming out of that activity? Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're the city manager and you're chief of police at Dixon. And you did these one-on-ones for 6 months. Right, let's just say,
I did them over 3 months.
Okay, so it's like 3 months. Yeah. Some of us will do them 6 months. What happens if the same problem keeps getting brought up by 6, 7 different people? And it's just something you can't fix. When do you lose their trust in your ability to be a leader?
So the one thing you do is you set an expectation at the beginning of this for how long these are going to take, and then what's going to happen after that. So in this initial meeting, we should say towards the end of it, I expect that this is going to take 2 months. I'm meeting with 25 people. This is going to take 3 months. And at the end of that 3 months, we're going to come together as a department for a meeting, and we're going to share those common themes. So I think the big thing you do is you set clear expectation. If something is so wrong and broken that you're identifying that needs immediate attention, then we've got to accelerate and figure out how do we give that immediate attention. Right? If somebody brings forward in one of these listening sessions a major issue or problem, then we got to figure out how do we address that. We can't continue to let that go on. If somebody talks to you about sexual harassment that they're experiencing, we can't wait 3 months for that. But depending on what's happening, hopefully we don't have those things come to, but if we do, then we can address them. So yeah, and 6 months is too long. If it's going to take 6 months to do, then we need to scale back the number of people. Maybe you create, okay, I got 10 direct reports. I'm going to do 5 of them. I'm going to create a lottery. I'm going to put their name in a hat, and I'm going to randomly draw them. I'm going to share that I did that. So I'm not like, I'd rather have Karen's input than Tim's. Does that make sense? So there's a fairness to process, because that's a real big thing.
Something similar came up in our group, too, of like, all right, so people are going to talk about comp, and comp is not something that I, as a manager, can change or change very quickly. So how do I address some of those types of topics when they come up? If that's true. So, I think you can say, here's what I can do. Here's what I can't do. So no promises. Let me see what my manager says, and I'll follow up with you. And just have a transparent conversation of like, these are things that aren't going to change. And then you as during this meeting, you're just listening, right? That's the first one. You're just listening, you're not reacting, you're not giving feedback. But when it's your turn to provide then it's time to say, like, if this isn't working for you, like, you might need to make a decision, right? That's good.
I think you made a good point there, right? Like, these are listening sessions, so like this is a big thing for somebody. And we had this with the company I work with, and it was the common theme. And actually, after somebody was doing 10 of these interviews, these listening sessions, and after like 4 or 5, they called, they said, Danny, like, this is the common theme from everybody. Okay, when the next person says it, say, thank you for bringing that up. That's actually been a common theme, and it actually gives us more leverage and ability to try to make change. I can't promise anything when this is the feeling of an entire group of people versus it's just me or an individual. Right? So I think what you can do in there, because you're not injecting what you're going to do or this is above my control or out of my control, we're just taking that in. We're not addressing it, but if we hear it as a common theme, then we have heard it, and we might say, that's been a common theme. And the great thing about this is that there's more strength in numbers for us to bring this forward. Does that make sense? It is going to be so hard to just listen and to not interact and put your spin on it, and questions and listening. There might be a situation, right, where, I know the point of this was for me just to listen, but I feel like you're wanting me to respond. Is that true? Right? But try not to do that. Try not to do that. The other thing to be conscious of, and I had this recently. So I'm doing the one-on-one with one of our department heads, and this department head, like 3 or 4 questions in, said, this really isn't a challenge I'm facing here, but this is a challenge I'm facing personally. And they went in, and at that moment, as I'm reading their energy and their body language, I knew and recognized that I needed to climb down into the hole and sit with this person and listen. And so the next half hour of the conversation was about the struggles they're facing with their kids, with parents, with different things that were very real. And so when this person got through that and was emotional, and I got them tissues and sat, demonstrated empathy, put myself in their position. I cared a lot about this person. I said, does it make sense if we pause and come back maybe next week or the week after? Okay, so we've got to be agile. We've got to read the room. We've got to understand what people need. Now, in all the one-on-ones I've done, that's never happened, but it just happened. And so we're not that was only question 4. We've got to push through question 8. So read the room on that. Other questions about the initial meeting. And we had, so over here, a situation where we've got a group of auditors. And so, tactically, the feeling is it's going to be best if I send them an email versus I pull them together as a group. And because of the thought process and the strategy and the people he's leading the whole person. He's leading the team as they need to be led. Totally fine with that, right? But what I will challenge you to do, that's appropriate in your situation, don't take the easy way out by sending an email. Because you showing up authentically with positive energy and sharing this with them and them feeling that is going to set this off on the right course. There is value, especially if you've never done this before, to having that meeting. And hopefully, the one thing I like about the activity and how we did this is that you get different perspective and viewpoints on how people are going to approach it. So you're able to practice and modify it. So there was a conversation with your guys' group, Marisol, about, what if really what comes from the group is dysfunction at a higher level. You want to talk about your perspective on that and some of what you shared with the group?
So we talked about leaning into empathy and understanding that you might not have any control over having that impact and that dysfunction, but what can you learn from the situation? What can you still do to make a positive outcome? And what can you learn not to do in moving around that? And so there's still a whole lot of value in that case. And it's also recognizing, I think we have all been in environments that haven't been the best environments. Everybody's gonna have that experience at some point in time. Obviously you don't want it to be around what you're doing, but that could be the case, right? And you don't have truly inclusive environments, that could be an impact to one individual person. So it's talking through the lessons that they could be learning, how they could, we talk about coping mechanisms through it, and just how to work around it and sharing, but also being very mindful of like, if there's a peak dysfunction time, does your communication or what you need to do have to happen in that moment? Is it that urgent, or can you just wait until they might be more open to listening?
Absolutely. And one of the things the group talked about and came to was, say there's something out of our control. Say this is at the C-suite level and there's nothing we can do about it. Well, there's power by demonstrating empathy and having that negative feeling or challenge unite your team. It can be a common bonding factor that strengthens the bond with the team. And then as the leader, we try to guide it in a situation where we control the controllables. Every now and then, this negative influence or impacts happen, but day to day, we can control our environment. My very first police chief, command and control, impose his will on you. And the priority changed every day, right? One day, the priority is those Harley mufflers are too loud, 0 tolerance, go out and write tickets. One day it's that I've seen too many cars that don't have a front license plate, 0 tolerance for writing them tickets. And the way he talked to it was terrible. But what happened with our department is everybody kind of like united and rallied against him. That didn't come out. It was like a common bonding thing. It wasn't a try to overthrow him by any means. But everybody had that common survival thing. And it's crazy how well we actually functioned as a department. Several of us got yelled at because I wasn't going to write somebody a $75 ticket at the time for not having a front license plate. And he asked me, well, you don't see any? Are you blind? Do I need to go out in the car and ride with you and point them out? And I apologize, sir. I'm just not seeing it, but if I do, I assure you I'll take action. But there's just no way. So that can be a rallying point. I really appreciated that discussion that you guys had. All right. Any other questions before we transition now to the listening session itself? Okay. For this activity, because I know different people, are getting it at different levels, feel free, email me individually if you have questions. I'll respond, get back to you, help with that. I'll try to be talking to people over lunch and through the day. How many direct reports? I've already talked to several people to dial in, like how many people do we want to do here and how do we want to take care of that, okay? All right, so on your table, we passed out a list of questions, and it says listening session Danny. On page, I believe, 4 of your handout, isn't it nice that we got the handouts right this time? Like they're in order and flashbacks from Montana. So the questions that are on page 4 are good questions. But the point with this is your team and you know what you're trying to get to. And so with that, what questions you want to use with your team? I would strongly encourage you to use the same questions with everybody. All right? Use the same questions with everybody, except if you're going to do your direct reports and their direct reports, not only will you ask about your leadership and how can you improve and how can you support them better, you will ask how their supervisor can. Okay? So the questions here. What energizes you and creates purpose and fulfillment in your current role? Always love to start with positive. So these are department heads I'm talking about. What impact are you trying to create within your department and the city? What's going really well on your team? What's going really well overall within the city? What does the ideal 2025 look like for you? What personal, professional goals do you have for the next year? How do you feel I'm performing as a city manager? Leadership, management, support, results, communication. What are areas I can improve to do a better job for you? What are areas I can improve to do a better job for the city? And just how can I support you better? So these questions are what are appropriate for where we are right now as a leadership team. Okay? And so for you guys to look at what's on page 4 and decide what do you want to do with your team. They're your questions. Okay? So, any questions on that? Use ChatGPT, like whatever it is you want to do, but get your baseline questions. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want us to get into groups of 2. And this will take us, and lunch will be ready about noon. This will take us into lunch, and we'll debrief it a little bit afterwards, okay? You're going to pair up. And you're going to do the introduction for the listening session. You're going to ask one question, and then you're going to close the listening session. Okay? The questions become the easier part. I will say, what you put into these activities is what you're going to get out of them. Right? So try to focus in, try to do these, put yourself in that situation, because I promise you, if you execute this the right way, it's going to have a good bounce for your team, even if things are going well. All right? So when we look at the introduction, okay, the positive energy, the thanking the person for taking the time to talk to you, the expectation, the conversations are private, and somebody said something good from this table when you were talking. I am going to take notes, just because I'm going to be looking for common themes, and I'm not going to be able to remember everything that was said in every conversation. People get that. But these notes will only be seen by me. As a reminder from our meeting, I'm going to be asking questions and only listening. Honestly, even if I don't agree with something that's said, I'm just here to listen. I just want your honest perspective, ideas, suggestions, and thoughts. Again, after the conversation, we'll compare the list of themes. And then what's going to happen is we're going to have a team meeting. I'm expecting that to happen in February, where we'll kind of share what the common themes are about what's going well, what are our challenges, what are our ideas. I'll be making changes and corrections within my leadership if feedback's provided and things I can do better right away. And then together we'll take on these things as a team. And then we have set that expectation that's being talked about. And then you go into the first question. And I don't have these things memorized, right? I'm sitting in the office. I grab the sheet. What I will tell you is that the department heads that have come in have had writing on this that I'd sent them. So they had different things. And people are in varying areas, All right. So the activity, groups of 2, just pair up. It's going to last probably 5 to 7 minutes. If we get to noon and only one person is gone, which is a good probability now, we will eat. We'll come back after lunch, and we'll do the other person. Figure out what question you want to ask them. Okay? And then I want the person who's being asked the questions to answer it honestly. What are your goals for 2025? If you had a magic wand and could change one thing, what would it be? Like whatever question you decide, whoever you're asking, answer it honestly. Learn something about the person that you're talking to. So there's additional value in what we're doing. Does that make sense? All right. So go ahead and get in groups in 2. Feel free to spread out in here, spread out there. At noon, let's eat. We'll see where people are at. We'll eat from noon to 1. And then we'll come back and we'll either do the other person or we'll debrief it.
All righty.